Welcome to the Consulting Leaders Podcast, where we talk about the business of consulting. Whether you're looking to grow your practice or learn from the stories of leaders in consulting, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Guillaume Jouvencel, ex-PwC and co-founder of GHA Marketing. Join me as I interview the best consultants in their niche. Let's get on with the show. Robert, welcome to Consulting Leaders. Happy to have you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Today, we are going to talk about one of my very favorite topics, which is marketing. What got you into the lovely business of fractional CMOing, Robert?
I probably got into it before it was even known as fractional work, quite frankly. When the internet was starting to become household usage back in the late 90s, I was going to college at Art Institute, right? And I graduated in 2001 with a graphic design degree, essentially. And instead of going off and working for a company, I started freelancing, and I did my aunt's new website for her furniture company and so on and so forth. And it just kind of spread over to about a 9-year career until the big hit, right? The 2008 housing crisis hit. And I didn't have enough business acumen at the time. So I kind of switched, went back and got a business degree. Lost my clientele. I had a lot of hospitality clients, Marriott, Hyatt's. We were doing a lot of seedy business card seminar work, if you will. And so all of that to say that over time, as I started as a graphic designer and the internet became bigger over time for these companies that wanted to be online, graphic design turned into multimedia design. And multimedia design then needed marketing behind it because now you could run ads on Google and this and that other thing. And so you kind of just naturally over a couple decades, I've been doing this for 25 years now, just turned into what we now call fractional marketing or fractional consulting.
You were a fractional CMO before being a fractional CMO was cool.
And I suppose so.
So although it sounds obvious, tell us more about what's the number one problem that you solve now?
For me, it's the fundamentals, business with technology and everybody's time and schedules. Everybody's hustling and they're fast and everybody wants to be effective and efficient. I do too. The problem with that is most people don't do it necessarily proper way. So the fundamentals matter. I work with 90% of my clientele are law firms right now. They miss the phone calls, for instance. Fundamental of just answering a phone call, right? They hire guys like me to come in and say, hey, I need better leads. You got to get our vendors straight. We've got to generate this much more capital or this much more revenue or whatever, right? In this given time. But they failed to remember that they're driving a broken car that they want to drive really, really fast. We need to build it up from the ground up, and everything in life, whether you're painting a house or building a business, is about preparation. And so if you can't get that right, things just get unhinged when you start to scale. And so right now, law firms that I work with, I'm really trying to hustle in their intake teams, making them understand the cost of a missed call. There's some firms I work with, they're losing hundreds of thousands of dollars a year because they can't handle calls right. That's crazy to me, right? You want to hire me for thousands of dollars a month to generate and help you get your marketing in order, but you fail to care about answering phones properly or follow-ups or lead management or your CRM organization and optimization, right? And being able to use those things properly and effectively. So that's what I usually work on anymore with folks.
That's a pretty compelling offer. Pay me a few $1,000s a month so I can make you earn hundreds of thousands.
Yep.
So law firms, tell me more about that. Like why this ICP? Do you have a specific size, by the way, industry category of like law practice? Who do you work with specifically and why?
I find, when I transitioned, life is full of transitions. And about 7 years ago, I transitioned and became an executive at a law firm called Modern Family Law. When I got on board there, I was the 25th employee. Technically, I worked next to the CEO on the executive board, and I ran the marketing department. At the time, we were doing Google ads and spending thousands, tens of thousands of dollars on those ads. At any rate, that's kind of how I ended up in law, if you will. But we were a small firm. We had just a few offices. When I left 5 years later, we were doing 3 million when I came on. When I left 5 years later, we were doing $10 million a year. 8 offices, 3 states. Now I think they're in 4 or 5 states. 160 employees, probably pushing 30 to 50 million a year. I'm just guessing based off of numbers and projections on what I would think they were at and what they're doing. So, but to answer your question, in doing all that, what I learned was scalability, right? How do you take a small firm that really wants to scale? Most law firms, by the way, don't really want to. Lawyers want to be lawyers. They're not really trying to be Mark Cuban, and they're not trying to take over industries, right? Necessarily. David Johnson of Modern Family Law is one of those rare cats that do. But nonetheless, most of them don't. But what I learned is that when we were small, it was the fundamentals that we had to get right. And Dave, the owner, knew that. We had a 1%, I repeat, a 1% missed call rate there. And it was because the owner gave a damn. And, most of the firms I work with have a 34% missed rate on their calls. And they don't want to afford a new intake person because they see the salary up front, but they don't understand the benefit on the back. Right. So that's kind of how I ended up figuring it out. So 1 million to $10 million firms are generally where I like to stay, or companies for that matter. Somewhere in that trajectory is where the fundamentals start to break down. The owner's too busy. There's too many things. There's too many things to touch and rub in the business to be successful, that you start to lose a little bit of the magic that's making you grow, right? And so I like to catch that magic in a bottle form and try to, on the marketing side of thing, marketing operations is what I like to call it, because a lot of the things I do have to do with operations, unfortunately. I can't do marketing without solid operations, right? So it's a matter of getting all those things together. So $1 to $10 million businesses, and after that, I think because of my success there in the last couple of years leaving the firm, I have so many firms reaching out and kind of understanding the success and what we've done. That's kind of been the sweet spot for me.
I'm taking a bit of a tangent here, but obviously, I'm sure you're dealing with that right now. Isn't the answer to 25-30% missed calls AI? Like an AI agent picking up the call and like, hey, I'm an AI agent for XYZ law firm. I'm going to try to, point you in the right direction whatsoever. We get pretty efficient at this. Like, isn't it that easy now?
It is, except for the adoption of that AI is a little stiff right now on the lawyer side. Right. Everybody likes this magic world of AI. Everybody fears the long-term goals of AI. They're all benefiting from the short-term usage of AI. And I love it too. I use it daily. I don't even know the days when I didn't have AI. It's weird, right? Just a couple years later, and it's so ingrained what we do. So it seems natural for us on a work level. But when you go and say, hey, we're going to put our reputation, our first impression, our brand on the line with AI that has proven itself, now it's getting better, obviously, exponentially, but has proven itself to say the wrong things and position you the wrong way. It is one of those hard sales to get attorneys to buy into that, right? And I have a few that have, and I have a few that are pondering the idea of it, and some that are like, no, we'll just hire more staff then, right? Until it becomes good enough to handle that. But yeah, you are right. We're in this transition period of where AI can help with the heavy lifting. Actually, I am involved with another company that's doing that, response authority, and what we do is offer that. But it is still a stiff thing to do so far. Maybe in another couple of years, everybody's going to feel so natural with something like that, and the transition is going to be nothing. And then missed calls won't be a problem, right? But right now they still are. And it's not just the missed calls, it's the follow-ups, right? Even if you
100%.
answer the call, it's how do you answer the call? Just picking up the phone doesn't mean you're good at picking up phones, if you know what I mean. You know what I mean?
Nor is the AI.
No, actually, we use these third party services in the law industry, and I'm sure every industry has these third party services, these answering services, these call centers, and I won't call any of them out, but they all struggle because they're trying to keep the human element there. But they've got people from every coast, sometimes out of the country, but most of these ones are working in the country. That's kind of their sales point, is they're US based, employees. And that's great, but one might answer it in the morning, one on the night, in a wrong East Coast, West Coast time zone. One sounds groggy, the one's excited. Your brand is still taking a hit with the inconsistency. So, I'd almost rather have somebody know it's AI, get the answers, answer their questions the best I can with the knowledge base that I can give AI, and then take their information, even book a consultation through the AI, and save the human pain of that. But we just haven't got there yet, perceptionally.
It is just a matter of time. How do
That it is.
you, to both our favorite section of this interview, Robert, how do you market? How do you brand? How do you get the eyeballs of 1 to 10 million US dollars law firms who are in need of marketing? What has worked for you to get the right traction? Do you answer the phone when law firms call you?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I have AI that backs up my phones as well. But
Nice.
yeah, for the most part, I work on a short wait list. I keep myself pretty limited to 6 to 8 clients. I'm not. You- I- I'm well. We can get to that, I guess. How do I scale? How does a fractional CMO scale, or any CMO or a fractional executive scale? That's one of the problems we have. Just like I had to figure it out for the law firms, you had to figure out for yourself too. There's only so many of me. There's only so much knowledge that I have that it's hard to hire another me, quite frankly, with my experience to put in this seat and trust to do the same job. How do I
Mhm.
scale myself? Right. That is a tough question. But as far as marketing, I think for me, when it started, when I knew at Modern Family Law that my tenure was kind of up there and it was time for a new challenge, a new thing, a new thing, if you will. I was coincidentally invited to speak down in Dallas at there's a huge marketing firm in the law industry called How to Manage a Small Law Firm. That's the name of the company. how to how to manage a small law firm. They're prolific. They have hundreds upon hundreds of law firms that use them to not just do marketing, but their operations and finance, and like it's a full system you buy into. At any rate, they were starting a CMO program down there. They hadn't done it yet. And so they were finding people like me from around the country and flying us into Dallas to just talk and see if we were interested in helping start this CMO program. They were doing CEOs and CFOs and COOs, but now they needed to add the CMO part of that. And they went ahead and did it. They're nice people and everything. I ended up declining the offer to do that, but I did go down and speak down there. At any rate, the point of the story is that started the networking for me and the referrals. And I picked up a general counsel and a couple other folks that liked me and my personality, my knowledge, and we started referring myself out. Now, on one particular case, I do pay a small referral fee monthly to one of my closest colleagues, right? And that just is a thank you over time. It's probably too much money. Usually there's an expiration date on that, but he's been very instrumental in getting me some very nice clientele that I've had since I've left the firm. My churn rate is 0%. I have not had a client leave me since I started on my own 2 years ago, nearly 2 years ago, and that will change. Eventually that will change. I'm not unrealistic to that, but it is a fact that over 2 years I've worked with firms and made them successful enough to want to keep working with me. And that's a pretty big deal. So that all of that goes into word of mouth for me. So I would say the number one way I get clientele right now is through the referral. That's the best way you can do it. If you can have a good referral system, that's the best funnel you can have, quite frankly. It's hard to build, but once you get it, treat it right, nurture it, it seems to help. I have done some LinkedIn advertising and picked up a couple clients through there. I do webinars. I think my website is a little outdated as far as the last webinar we did, but I'll update that for February's webinar. So I do webinars and invite firms. Service businesses in general all suffer from the same problem: answering phones, time limitations, marketing operations, they all suffer from that. So, those webinars can help anybody, but they're really specifically towards the law firms. And we walk through CRMs and show them how to optimize their CRMs, and, how to follow up with leads properly, scripts for their intakes. I mean, you name it, we talk about it, right? So those are the things that help me just leverage my knowledge and experience and keep the funnel kind of happening for me. Now, I will say that one of the things I'm trying to do is reposition myself where I'm not spending all my time. I'm trying to productize myself in a sense, right? How do we do that? So that's kind of where I'm trying to figure out in 2026 is kind of one of my goals is how do I take what I do, the knowledge I have, and how do we leverage that in a different way?
I like that. And to go back to one of your points, how do you scale a fractional CXO person/firm? Well, retention seems like you nailed that part so far. Systems, AI for sure, delegating. I think ultimately, so it's funny. We are working with a fractional CFO right now for a very specific niche. And I mean, when you become extremely good at generating demands, and you have more demand than you can handle, it's basically transforming the fractional CRO. If you want to scale and take it to the next level, obviously, if you want to be the one doing all the things, and there is value in that, 100%, it's just transforming it slowly but surely into a CXO agency or just consulting practice, like marketing agency or marketing consulting practice, because it's very much that. It's like, hey, you're going to have a smaller and smaller fraction of my time, but don't worry. The team that I've built, I've personally trained, is going to take care of XYZ. I guess that's my 2 cents on how to scale a CRO, a fractional, sorry, CXO agency.
Well, and some of it for me, without interrupting you, but for some of it for me is not
Please.
just my knowledge. It's how do you take the knowledge bits that I have? Okay, let's just take missed calls because it's been not top. That isn't something. That's just something I learn and know. I know the numbers behind it. I understand the problematic issues behind. I know what it does to a business, right? But that's not because I'm special. That's just because I've got exposure. I can teach anybody how to look at missed calls and figure out their missed call system, right? So that's the kind of thing that I want to productize in the sense that, like, let me build a program, like build a system, have a team in place that allow that you can hire or utilize or do it yourself from the webinars we do and stuff like that, to optimize some of these pieces for yourself or hire us to do those one-off pieces. And then my time becomes much more valuable at the end of that, right? For the firms that really need a CMO to organize teams and processes and procedures, then you can hire me and my time's more valuable. But to mess with all the fundamental stuff, that's stuff that I can chop up and put in packages and products that people can use, right? So that's kind of the goal around chopping up my time. But you're absolutely right as far as just the service end of it. There's certainly lots of people that know how to do marketing and CMO. I'm not special in that sense. I think it's just the exposure to the firms, and being a business owner for 25 years myself, and just understanding how all that happens.
I like that. How do you? So you get those referrals, you do those webinars, speaking engagements. How do you move the conversation to an actual sales conversation, Robert? How do you go from, hey, you're a law firm making $1 to $10 million a year, probably missing 25% of the calls that you're receiving, I can help, to like, hey, here is what it looks like. Basically, what does the sales motion look like until the finish line for you?
Usually the numbers speak for themselves a lot when we're talking about fundamentals anymore. If it was just about the service and marketing, I probe a lot of questions to understand their pain points. I've been doing it long enough now. I know what a law firm's suffering from. I don't care if you're doing bankruptcy law firm or business. I don't care what kind of practice area you're in. I know your problems, right? And so my question is, how do I ask questions around those problems I know you likely have, and then offer solutions on the back end of that? How are you going to fix it, right? There's this pain point they know they have, and they're coming to me to say, how do you fix it? Well, I kind of say, how did you fix it before? Did it work? What are you gonna do if you don't use me, kind of situation, right? Like, here's your options on the table. You know what their pain point is. Usually those kind of conversations, if they're articulated right, get you to the point where you can make for the ask at the end. It's taken me lots of years to practice that, and I'm still not great at it, but I think, it's always a work in progress. And sometimes it's a personality thing, attitude. Sometimes people just want a hard marketing lead. They don't want to talk about strategy with you and those kind of things. And those kind of people, I don't want maybes from people, right? In sales, we don't want maybes. We want yeses or nos. And so I'd much rather have somebody tell me no, or me say no, right? I don't think we should work together. So those are the kind of things. But yeah, as far as the sale goes and the transition, I try to just really find their pain point and add friction to it, not in a bad, unethical sense, but just what are you going to do with this pain point we've identified, right? I have the solution for it. And by the way, here's the numbers that's going to prove it out. Oh, and if you need to talk to a lawyer from one coast to another in your practice area, because I've worked with them, here's their phone number. Talk to them.
Mhm.
Right. So
Yeah, do
proof,
that.
the social proof from that, the numbers behind it, and then just pressuring on the pain points themselves instead of just having a general conversation about what they do and what they think they need.
Yeah, 100%. To the secret sauce of your business, Robert, because now I'm extremely curious. I mean, you're in business for 2 years, so I guess it also makes sense. And you said it is going to happen, but how do you retain? How do you keep clients, 100% of them so far, 6 to 8? So that's 7 clients for 2 years and more. Like, what's your retention secret?
Well, the first one is communication. I think so many consultants, I don't know if it's ego or experience or what, but I've been around a lot of consultants, and the know-it-all symptom can get the best of folks. Being arrogant about it, having an ego, because you are getting hired for your expertise. I think some people put themselves on a pedestal, and so in doing so, what happens is their communication distance is strong, right? They're not as transparent with the process or the reasoning behind their decisions. So I think some of that, but it is really communication. I think when there's a problem, I'm the first one to say, hey, we messed up. I messed up. Here's the solution, fix it. And I don't talk about the problem. I talk about the solution, right? I'll admit if there's a problem, we need to do better. The more important part for these owners or for any executive is talking about the solution, right? So those are the kind of things that I think help keep me around. And then just success. I mean, we grow firms. That's what we do. So when you see it, when you see the dollar signs, when your team's more effective, because I'm giving proper leadership to your intake team, giving them better direction, making them more confident, more competent, that affects the numbers, right? When you start following up better and managing your leads, and instead of following up in a day, you follow up in 15 minutes. Guess what? Your numbers change almost immediately. And that keeps me around. Now, the long term of that, when they figure it out, because I would figure at some point you don't need a fractional CMO, but they depend at one point as a source of security. Right. If you let me go, what happens to the team? What happens to the organization? What happens to all the progress we made? That's what keeps me around, right? And the goal for me, for these firms, isn't for them to perpetually keep me around forever. Honestly, my goal is to stand them up so they can hire their own in-house marketing team, right? That's the goal of these firms that want to scale. You don't want to have all these general contractors running around all over. That's not how you're successful. That's not how Modern Family Law built a multi-million-dollar law firm. It's not by having vendors all over the place. We brought people in-house, 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 SEO in-house, marketing, PPC guy in-house, right? Those things happen in-house to be successful, not out. But when you're scaling, you don't have a choice. So, that's why I get to stick around. Sorry for the long-winded explanation, but
This is
there you
why
go.
we're here, Robert. We don't do TikTok. We don't do. That's not true. We put stuff on TikTok, but like this is meant
Gotcha.
to be long form. We take the time to explain stuff. So no, I love it. I think so. I love this question because obviously the obvious answer is just do a good job. That's true. I mean, if you don't do a good job, you're not going to retain clients. Period. But then it also goes beyond like what's the communication cycle that you have in place. Like What are the milestones that you communicate on? How do you make the clients look back at like, hey, remember, this is where we were 6 months ago. By the way, this is where we're headed. You still want me around because we're going to get you there. Wink, wink. Having like downsells, upsells, continuity services, like those are mechanisms that I think too many fractional CXOs, B2B coaches, consultants don't think about because they're just like, do a good work, obviously, and then what? Communication is key. Having the dollars that come in, you're in marketing. I think for certain industries, to be fair, I'm thinking about the sales industry as well, the signals are also easier to track. Like, are dollars going up or down? Up, we're good. Down, we're not good. Stagnating, we're not good. We're not good. So this was a very long answer to your very long answer to say that your very long answer was all right. All right, let me ask you this then. What's your number one challenge, Robert? What's the one thing that is challenging you in your business that not that you're trying to crack and that once you crack, we're off to the moon?
I think it's a scalability thing. I think, the reason I cap myself at 6 to 8 clients isn't because it's a it does help in marketing because it makes scarcity happen, right? For those that want to hire me. So that's a nice second thing to have, but that's not why it's in place. It's really just to protect my time. um, and I give probably more time to that might be with some of my retention too with clients. I give more of my time than I probably should to these clients. I think consultants in general can do that, right? And now I do have it down where I know a lot of time I give them, but I'm generous with it. I want to make sure that when they have a new intake person hired, that it's just, I we don't have there's no time. No, I'm going to make time to meet with her or him and go through the process and make sure they're as comfortable as they can in their transition with a new job. There's new processes that need to be rolled out on a hands-on meeting with a firm. I'm going to be there, right? Those are the things that I make sure I have time for. And I think the presence of having there's a lot of fractional CEOs that I work around or have connections with. They don't act like a CEO. They act like a consultant. Their face is never present in the company that they work for. Barely anybody knows their name unless you're at the top of the heap or paying the bill for them, right? No, I don't want that. No, I want to be part of your team. And I think that how I ingrain myself in your team is one of the other reasons why I probably have my retention rate. Um, I want to make sure that your team knows who I am. And if they need an answer when it comes to CMO related marketing operations, there's an answer, right? So there you go.
How are you going to do that, Robert? How are you going to scale your fractional CMO practice without downgrading the perception of the value that you bring? All this with balloons, amazing. Like, curious, because we see it happening. So we're helping a fractional CFO do it right now, but it's not an easy task, right? And keeping the level of service and involvement you can have with the clients while scaling this. I mean, it's a people trainings business basically, but how are you seeing this? How are you approaching it? And how are you going to make that happen?
Well, I think I'll do a kind of a 3-tier thing. We're kind of working that out right now, and within this month, mid-February, we'll kind of have more formal rolling out of that and offering. But kind of a 3-piece set. The first piece is going to be helping with missed calls. And just showing the numbers behind that. If you can just sew this up, you're gonna get X amount of revenue out of it. I got a calculator that does it all for them, so they can see how much money they're losing by X amount of marketing dollars. Calls are missing, calls are handling, all that kind of stuff comes out to $1 at the end. And so that's one piece to help them. The third piece is just helping all their leaks. There's really like 6 big leaks that law firms have, right? Phone mishandling the incoming inbound calls is just one of them. But there's 5 others that are so strong, and they take up so much of the resources of a firm. I can chunk those up into a nice package where a team on my team can help you implement it, either on a DIY, do with you or do for you. And my team will just do that, right? We'll just come in, we'll ingrain ourselves for 30 to 60, maybe 90 days, and we'll fix those fundamentals for you, right? We'll show you where they are. We'll give you reports, stats, numbers, the whole nine, so you understand what the problem is before we just push a solution towards it, and why the solution we want to push towards it is that, right? So that's going to be part of it. And then the third part of that offering is the fractional side. And for those firms that say, wow, it's great that you sewed up and we're saving a couple $100,000 a month, but we want more of your expertise. We need to clean up our teams and our vendors and our X, Y, and Z's. At that point, then I think I can start to find great CMOs, right? Other fractionals that can start to fill in those gaps, right? Because those are still fundamentals on marketing side too. Right now, what I have is just a holistic knowledge from the front of a early law firm or small business, service business, to multi-million dollar one. There's a it, Again, it's not magic. It's how do I chunk this up and productize some of it, not try to scale me, right? I could have 10 more CMOs. That's I I'm scared of AI. I need to diversify myself too. When I think about, I'm 49, what am I going to do in another 20 years when AI is taking my consultant job? It's already threatening it now. I have clients that are saying, hey, I searched on AI. How come we haven't done X, Y, or Z? And I have to say, well, because we don't have the budget or the team or the resources. The AI didn't tell you about your business because it doesn't know your business. It's got ideas
Yet.
that you can put towards your business, but implementation, execution is where it's at for me, right? Ideas are a dime a dozen. You could get those before AI all day long. Now with AI, everybody's got an idea, a million ideas, and they're all the best ideas. Now it's about how you implement them. How do you execute on those ideas? And that's where my value comes in. And I think that that can be scalable. It just needs to be done right. I think doing it the normal consulting path where you're trying to scale up by humans, I think that's defeatist for me, especially when we think about where we're going to be in another decade. So it's how do I package this up, put my knowledge in something that you can do. And then, by the way, that's not even going to solve AI, because AI is still going to do all that for them too. It's still going to be about the implementation, the execution of that, until AI can do it on its own.
So we know why we are all here, but I really appreciate the honesty and transparency, Robert. And I think um, this is key in a format podcast. And you've nailed it. I think at the end of the day, I mean, this is the traditional AI chat, right? But like, yes, everybody should be scared about AI 100%. And if your job consists of spending 8 hours a day almost on your computer, you should be scared of AI. If you're not, you're missing something. Now, that said, for coaches and consultants, it's going to be transformed for sure. I think you're right. It's eventually going to go to a place at some point where it's also going to be able to implement it. But then we're talking about a time where everything is AI anyways, so nobody works anymore, and it's a whole different problem. I
Yep.
think right now, the consultants, the fractional CXOs, the coaches who make the most out of the AI wave is obviously implementing it into their own business the proper way, but being able to, in their offer, in their service, do the unscalable, un-AI doing things, which at the end of the day is where the value is. Because every great entrepreneur will tell you, like, the idea means nothing. Like, the idea means nothing. It's how you execute on it. So yes, AI tells me to do XYZ, Google Ads, whatsoever, but like, how do you do it? How do you implement it for your business? What are the keywords that you want to position yourself on? What does make sense? What's the competitive analysis? How do you implement it? How do you test? How do you landing page? Like, that's where the value is. Robert Toler, ladies and gentlemen. Robert, if people want to find out more about you, see what you do, where should they go?
Usually, best thing is email, or going to my website, growthpropulsion.com. Responseauthority.com is the new site that we're kind of rolling out and kind of reorganizing, and putting more of the productized services on things. But growthpropulsion.com is where you'll find the webinars that we do, and a contact form and things like that. Um, you know, I like to speak and educate, but I'm not a TikToker, I'm not a YouTuber, so I don't necessarily have channels or handles for anybody to necessarily go to. I work through a network of great professionals and happy to help anybody that might need it, and always looking for suggestions to be better myself.
We'll put all the links in the description. What I can say for sure is that you've gained at least one new connection on LinkedIn, Robert. Me. Thank you so much
Good.
for coming on Consulting
That's
Leaders.
enough. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of the Consulting Leaders Podcast. We hope you learned valuable lessons on how to grow your practice and take your business to the next level. Make sure to subscribe and leave us a review wherever you're listening to this show so you never miss an episode. To apply and be a guest on the show, click the link in the description. See you next time.